Welcome to Just Curious Media. This is Let's Talk Cobrakai, and I'm Jason Connell. So I am here today with a very special episode. I interviewed Bud S. Smith, the associate producer and editor of The Karate Kid, the classic film, the origin of it all, way back in December of 2020. It was actually December 17th of 2020. And the reason I did this interview is because I was doing an episode of Let's Talk Movies. It was actually episode 3, To Live and Die in L.A. William Friedkin, incredible masterpiece of a movie. I love it. I revisit it all the time. But while I was researching the movie, doing my notes for the episode, I came across Bud S. Smith. He was co-producer of that film, second unit director, supervising film editor. But what stood out to me was the fact that he was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I reached out to him. We had a great conversation. His credits are incredible. And then we did an interview, and I was going to just maybe talk about To Live and Die in L.A. or maybe just talk about The Karate Kid. But we talked about lots of things. And I released it as episode 14 on Let's Talk Movies because it was so encompassing. It was more than The Karate Kid. Well, it's been some time, and I figured this episode, this interview needs to be on Let's Talk Cobrakai as well. So I didn't pull everything out and just leave in the Karate Kid stuff because it's not a ton. I wanted to play it in its entirety. So more about Bud S. Smith. He is a 2-time Oscar-nominated editor. Incredible. And that was for The Exorcist, 1973, also with William Friedkin, who directed, and Flashdance in 1983. Sorry, The Exorcist, 1973, Flashdance, 1983. He didn't win either, but he was nominated, and then he won a BAFTA for Best Editing of Flashdance. So this guy, this Bud guy, is killing it. And him and William Friedkin developed a friendship, and he went on to work with Friedkin on The Sorcerer in 1977, The Brinks Job 1978, Cruising 1980, Deal of the Century in 1983. And beyond working with Friedkin, Bud S. Smith worked on Some Kind of Wonderful with Howard Deutchman, the John Hughes movie, as the editor. He directed Johnny Be Good in 1988. Darkman 1990, Sam Raimi's movie, he was editor and supervising editor. And of course, Darkman was Larry Drake, also from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Larry Drake, rest in peace, spoke at my high school commencement, or my high school graduation. He did the commencement speech. But amazing, these weird parallels. So it's a wonderful conversation. He's very witty, very smart. Knew any and everybody in Hollywood, just was in that era, right? An era before mine, maybe even more than one era, but it's just amazing to see these talented guys who worked on tons of movies, guys and girls, I should say. But something came to light during my conversation, my preliminary phone call with Bud. I discovered this and really thought long and hard how to handle it, but I'll explain. So he had survived throat cancer, and not in more recent times, and lost half of his tongue and had his jaw replaced. So for Bud to speak, it's difficult. It's more of a soup and smoothie diet, and you have to really focus to hear all of his words. He's incredibly bright, like I mentioned, and he speaks very fluently, but you've got to focus. And when I first talked to him on the phone, I was like, oh my gosh, how's this going to translate to podcasting? But then I edited it. Then I was in post-production editing the original episode that I aired it on. And I was like, it sounds great. And, we had a nice, fluid and fun conversation. And so I figured I'd bring it here as well and release it on Let's Talk Cobrakai. So I do hope you enjoy it. Those watching on YouTube, unfortunately, you're going to have to download the podcast version to hear Bud S. Smith, but it's well worth your time. Trust me on that. So without further ado, please enjoy but as Smith. So thank you so much for listening, and please be sure to subscribe to the Let's Talk Cobra Kai podcast and the Let's Talk Cobra Kai YouTube live channel. You can also really help us by giving the show a 5-star rating on Apple Podcast. And for all you listeners that enjoy sharing your thoughts, you can leave us a review on Apple Podcast, send us a direct message, or post a comment on any Let's Talk Cobra Kai social media platform. We also highly recommend checking out our other podcast and visiting justcuriousmedia.com. No mercy.